The NFC North looks insanely competitive this year, and honestly, I don't know what to make of it. Maybe we can ask this guy what he thinks. All right, man, what do you think of this one? All right, he doesn't care. The market cares though, because this could be their money-making division, because all four teams in the division have between plus 150 and plus 450 odds to win it, which makes it the most competitive division in the league, and outside of the NFC West, none of the other divisions even come close. Tangent, by the way, but I'm seeing here the Niners are favored to win the NFC West. I did not expect that. Those NFC North odds are totally fair though. All four teams are playoff contenders, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if any one of these teams wins this division. But at the same time, these teams are so tightly competitive that I also wouldn't be surprised if any of the four finish last in the division or miss the playoffs entirely. The margins are so fine. So I want to go around the horn in this division and discuss each team's strengths, their ceiling raisers, aka where are their points of potential that give them the ceiling to go win this division, and then where are their open questions that could be their hindrance come December and January. Now, I did just talk about the Packers in my last video. I was going to talk about them in this one, but then, well, the Micah Parsons trade happened, so we had some extenuating circumstances. So you can find my post-trade thoughts on them in that video, but we'll skip them here and instead first talk about a team that many probably think have the widest variability in outcomes for what they could be this season, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. That Vikings team went 14-3 last season with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. I believed in Sam Darnold, man. I always believed. I believed in 2018. I believed Adam Gase let him down. And I guess I was right. Well, aside from January, because, we all know what happened in that Rams wildcard game. But the fact that the Vikings were even able to go 14-3 with a resuscitated Sam Darnold as their quarterback tells you a lot of things about just how good this organization is right now. Kevin O'Connell is able to get the best out of these quarterbacks in the surroundings that he has with, having a 1A receiver in this game and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, you name it. But he even did this with an O-line that over the years was amazing on the perimeter in terms of the two tackles, Darisaw and Brian O'Neill. But on the interior was a serious weakness. Seriously, you could argue that the Vikings' interior O-line was just as big of a reason as Sam Darnold that they had such a huge offensive letdown in their two most important games to end the season. You saw it against the Lions when Aaron Glenn went against his usual schemes and played a shit ton more cover zero, and how effective that was against the Vikings interior O-line that couldn't handle that blitzing. And then you saw it again against the Rams, who had God knows how many pressures in that wild card game. But they addressed that weakness in a massive way this offseason. They brought in Ryan Kelly as a free agent on a 2-year, $18 million deal to go play center. Yeah, he was top 10 in the league among interior O-linemen in pass block win rate last season. How about at left guard? Donovan Jackson comes in. He was a first-round pick that they drafted to be their starting left guard from Ohio State. Will Fries, another Colt, coming in as a massive free agent signing. He was having a career year at right guard for Indy before he was sidelined with a season-ending injury. You put that together with Christian Darisaw, who's one of the best blindside blockers in this league, whose season last year was cut short due to injury. And then Brian O'Neill on the other side, he himself was top 3 in pass block win rate last year, and you get what looks like one of the best offensive lines in the league. And for a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback basically, that's huge. We saw the impact of that. Just look at Denver last season with Bo Nix behind one of the best O-lines in football last year. He was able to be so comfortable in the pocket, and it allowed him to be successful. And with JJ McCarthy coming in with one of the best O-lines and even better perimeter weapons than that, he's set up so well for success. Oh yeah, and their defense has been pretty elite under Brian Flores since he's arrived. This is how their defense did last year on early downs. Yeah, they're up there with the Broncos as one of the most elite. And on top of that, they've brought in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to go ahead and bolster a D-line that was already very explosive. Around the quarterback position, the Vikings have one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. And that gives them the ceiling to go ahead and win this division. And if JJ McCarthy can live up to his billing, they can go even further than that. But that is also the question that everyone has around this team entering the season, right? Is JJ McCarthy really like that? And because they haven't seen it yet, they're hesitant to predict it, which is fair, right? We naturally tend to do that. But let me just say this. I am slightly biased here. right? I was a student at Michigan, and throughout my time there at the university, J.J. McCarthy was my starting quarterback. He brought a national championship to me while I was a student in person, okay? That man is a legend in my eyes. He is the reason I'm able to have this after all. But obviously, the NFL is a different ballgame, right? I don't think he was the greatest pocket passer at Michigan, but he was so good at making things happen out of nowhere. So there are promising signs. And he's in a situation that is as good as it can possibly be. It's truly as good as a situation gets for developing a young quarterback. And so there might be growing pains, but Kevin O'Connell's earned my trust over the years. I'm inclined to believe that he can and will get the best out of J.J. McCarthy. It's a major question with plenty of room for optimism, but it's not the only question we have about the Vikings that could limit them. One is the corner room, and specifically the depth. They re-signed Byron Murphy to an extension and Isaiah Rodgers from the Eagles to be their starting two corners. But outside of that, Tavierre Thomas was bounced around the league. Jeff Okudah, did not live up to what he was supposed to be. Dwight McLaughlin was an undrafted last year. Ambry Thomas is a bounce around from the Niners. In a division that has Amon-Ra St. Brown and J-Mo, DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, Matt Golden and Jaden Reed, plus more wide receivers for each of those teams. Corner depth is a big thing in the NFC North that's going to matter. And especially for the Vikings, if one of those top two guys go down, the depth is not there. And the last thing is their run game. If you look here, EPA per rush last season for every team, the Vikings were bottom 10 in rushing efficiency. They put a lot of wear and tear in Aaron Jones, who had a good innings eater season last year, but obviously they don't want to have to put that much volume into him again. So they've brought in Jordan Mason from the 49ers, but he's not shown consistent production so far throughout his career. So it remains to be seen if the Vikings can improve on this with the help of an improved interior O-line. Overall, it's a pretty solid team led by a young quarterback under an exciting head coach, which gives the team a lot of potential for this season. And that brings us conveniently to our next team, who similarly fits that description, the Chicago Bears. This is the most exciting they've been in a long time, man, and we all know why. The guy every team with a head coaching spot open wanted is now their head coach. He comes in to support the development of the number 1 overall pick last year, Caleb Williams, and he surrounded him, some of it him, some of it what was there, with DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet too. This offense has a high ceiling, man. And if Ben Johnson can put the pieces together and get the best out of Caleb Williams, just like the Minnesota Vikings, this is going to be very exciting to watch. And just like the Vikings, the Bears have solidified their interior O-line too. They brought in Joe Thuney at left guard. Let me tell you, he was number 1 last season in pass block win rate among all interior offensive linemen. They brought in Drew Dahlman at center from the Atlanta Falcons. They brought in Jonah Jackson, a former Lion under Ben Johnson, to be the right guard. They put that together with Braxton Jones, who was pretty okay as the blindside blocker last season. Darnell Wright, a recent early round pick for the Bears. That O-line was quietly okay last season if you look at the metrics, and just like the Vikings, they've beefed it up to make what looks like a very solid O-line on paper if it can stay healthy. One weakness offensively, though, and similar to the Vikings again, who they parallel pretty damn well, is their run game. They were also a bottom 10 team in terms of rushing efficiency last season, and they didn't make any major additions into the running back room. Obviously, the interior line is much improved on paper entering the season, so it remains to be seen if that helps their run game. But there's going to be a lot of volume for DeAndre Swift to try and be more efficient than he was last year, along with if the Ben Johnson scheme can help with that. And the other big question is if the Bears defense can step it up a notch. Specifically, their D-line. That unit was bottom 10 last season in both pass rush win rate and run stop win rate, and they had trouble generating pressure on the opposing quarterbacks in general. They've made major additions. They've brought in Grady Jarrett from the Falcons. They've brought in Odeyingbo from the Colts. But it remains to be seen if that was enough. The rest of the defense was all right last season, though, and for the most part, it's untouched. Jack Sanborn is gone, so they do have a 4th-round rookie coming here at linebacker, but you like Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. And the secondary was all right. The Bears were actually all right against the pass last season. I think a big thing, though, is we'd really love to see Jalen Johnson healthy, man, because if he can play up to what we've seen him done even a couple years ago, That would be a huge boost to this Bears secondary. Okay, now that the teams with the shiny new toys are out of the way, and that includes the Green Bay Packers, let's actually talk about the team that went 14-3 and finished first in the NFC last season. Let's not talk about after that though. There's not many new toys here, but the Apple Care came through because almost the entire Lions defensive roster from last season is back healthy. I mean, yeah, it's actually kind of crazy how many of these guys are still facing injury issues, but so many guys are back, and that's awesome to see. Obviously, the biggest one being a depoy contender in Aiden Hutchinson. The rest of the D-line too, it's good to have them back, like DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport, you name it. I mean, across the board, most of the personnel is the same as last year. I think the biggest swap was at corner, where Carlton Davis moved on to New England, and so the Lions replaced him by bringing in DJ Reed from the Jets, who had a solid tenure there over the last couple of years. And then at the interior offensive line, they made their own addition by drafting Tate Ratledge to be their new right guard. Aside from that, though, this roster is pretty similar to what it was last season. You can't complain about that. They were top 10 in passing efficiency, top 10 in rushing efficiency, top 10 in defending the pass. Obviously, their pass rush and run defense was not necessarily the greatest last season, but you bring back Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport on the edge, and that's going to have a huge boost to that. We know what this offense can be. It's shown that they have so many routes to generating big plays, both on the ground and through the air. We've seen what this defense can be with many impact guys that can help generate negative plays like Aiden Hutchinson, like Brian Branch, like DJ Reed, who's coming in now. The major question for the Detroit Lions, though, is how they respond to the loss of both of their coordinators and a sweep of their coaching staff that came with it. Incoming at offense coordinator is John Morton. Incoming at defensive coordinator is Kevin Shepard. And those two guys and how they revitalize these offense and defensive units to keep them at the level that they've been under Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, respectively, who are now both head coaches. They lost 8 assistants this offseason. That's a lot of the coaching staff. And while you can bring in the same schemes and, keep what's working, a big facet of coaching, as we've seen throughout the NFL in regards to these coordinators, is their ability to play call. And Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were pretty damn good at that in order to get the best out of both of their units. And so how Morton and Shepard adapt to those roles is going to be really important for the Lions, especially when you look at what their schedule is this season. Obviously, every division game in this division is going to be nuts, but if you look at their first place schedule that they got handed, how's at Ravens, at Bengals, at Chiefs, versus the Bucks, who they've historically had tougher games against, at Commanders, at Eagles, at Rams. There's a lot of tough games against many, and honestly most, of the top contenders that we see in the NFL entering the season. It's the toughest schedule in the NFL, so I don't think the Lions are going to get back to 14-3 this season, but they're still deservingly the favorites in the NFC North, and how much of a drop-off they have from that record, if any, is going to come down to how their coaching changes affect who they are as a team. Because the team is still pretty damn solid, assuming health. Which is why I'm praying, and I mean praying, that the Lions have better injury luck this year. So you put those 3 teams together with the Green Bay Packers, who already entering the season looked like the most balanced team in the division. They were just missing difference makers, top tier ones, especially in that front 7. And well, they solved that problem in a major way. So with that, you have 4 teams that set up to create what looks like one of the best divisions that we've ever seen, assuming health, knock on wood. Now, I feel like when we've had situations like this in the past, i.e. the NFC West from like 2 years ago, where people were predicting every team in the division to have 10 plus wins, usually it doesn't end up happening because some team ends up having a fall off. The AFC North was actually even like that last year, you could say. The NFC North doesn't feel like that though. Right now it's completely up for grabs, even if one team does underperform. A big part of that too is the fact that you could have someone come back in time from late December and they could tell us right now what is the ranking for how each of the 4 QBs in this division performed this year. And I think they could give us any order, and not a single order would surprise me. That's how close these teams and these quarterbacks are where we're entering the season, and that's what's going to make it so fun. You're probably wondering what my prediction is for the division this year, and I don't know, man. I seriously don't know. I just want good football from this division. Is that too much to ask? Give me a couple days, though. I'll try to give you one. On here.